Hello, Hamilton Harden.
Hello, Sean Wallace.
How you doing? You doing all right?
Doing good, man.
Yeah. So I thought today we could talk about preparing for a gig, preparing for a performance.
Mm-hmm.
And we could talk, maybe part of it would be preparing as a sideman. And maybe the other part of it, this conversation could be, this is your gig. This is you're the leader.
Mm-hmm.
And, preparation associated with the gig, what kind of musicians you're looking for, what kind of rehearsal schedule maybe that you plan for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what are some of your preparation habits as a sideman?
As a sideman, I noticed that if time is willing, I learn best by taking in the music orally rather than depending on charts, because I know if I practice with charts and there's like a weird dependence on charts that happens for me.
Yeah.
That even if I know the song, I can't help but to just stare at the chart for some reason. Charts for me help when time is not on my side as far as time to prepare. But if I have time to prepare and I know, the gig is far enough, if I have a couple weeks for it and I can block out time in my schedule, I really prefer to learn it orally because then I really lock into the feel of the song, the groove, the vibe, all that stuff. I know I'm using very generic terms when I say like stuff like vibe, but really the character of the song, the pocket of the song, I think I can, or songs, I'm sorry, I can lock into it better when I'm closing my eyes and I'm learning it this way as opposed to looking. Because I know just for me, maybe not for everyone, but for me, it's a different part of my brain that is functioning when everything is visual. I think I use charts when there's something that I'm not hearing as clearly from a recording. If there's a line I'm questioning, a line that goes viral. Sorry about that. You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sorry, okay. I had a call that just came in on my phone. But if there's a line that goes by a little too quickly, and I just didn't catch it, I'll go refer to the chart to see exactly what was in the line. Or if there's a rhythm, I'm second guessing. I want to make sure. But really, I've tried to do it orally, and then once I learn the song with the music, then I turn the music off and play it from memory on my own without a recording, because I noticed I can also become dependent on a recording.
Right.
So if I'm playing drums on a gig, I'm used to on a recording maybe hearing a cue from another instrument, from a bass player, a keyboard player or something. And if I don't hear that cue, all of a sudden it throws me off. But if I know the song and I can play it on my own, I can count it off without any tempo cues from a recording, then I'm good.
Right. Yeah. This is so part of what I'm hearing you say, because I think all of us have to know what kind of learner we are,
Mm-hmm.
or what we lean on. Now, all of us are. I mean, if we are sighted, if we do have vision,
Right.
Then we are both oral and visual.
Right.
However, we may be more oral as learners or more visual as learners.
Mm-hmm.
I often tell folks that I'm an ear player that got theory.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a person that learned from sheet music first and then went the other direction. Now, granted, being able to read music, sheet music, opens up a whole nother world
Right.
as far as being able to learn things more quickly, especially when you have to. I mean, I do a number of gigs where, you know, there is no recording,
Yeah.
you know, and all there is the sheet music. I play with the CJO quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we'll get the book, you know, we might get the book like a week out from the show. But, you know, most of the time there's like not really recordings. And so really the first time I'm hearing it is sitting there in the first rehearsal.
Yeah.
You know, and and my routine for that is, you know, I scan the sheet music, I look at it and I say, okay, well, here are some challenging things. Here's going to be some places where there's some weird syncopated stuff, or where there's just like a lot of technique associated with executing a certain passage. You know, I try to look at, you know, key signatures, time signatures, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And even if a recording wasn't provided, I may actually, okay, well, this tune that we're doing, yeah, I know that there is a recording. Let me get on YouTube and see if I can find a recording if there's something that I'm questioning. As far as like a church gig, or if I was on a, R&B gig or something, or hip hop gig, you know, in fact, I play with this band called the Gorilla Funk Mob. I actually have a gig coming up, not this coming weekend, but next weekend. You know, the first day in the weekend, that Friday the 17th, I'm playing an all John Coltrane tribute concert to my quartet.
Yeah, I saw that on Facebook. Yeah.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be cool. It's gonna be very, very cool. And now, the musicians, I've two of the three musicians that I'm using, I've played with before, and played with actually quite a bit, but haven't played with them for a while. And you know, I opened up a Dropbox, I put charts in there, and I didn't really put recordings. Now, all the stuff that we're doing is, you know, anybody can find. So if they want to listen to the recordings, they can do that. But the musicians I selected, I picked because I knew that they were probably already comfortable with those recordings. You know, they had been listening to that stuff. So the sheet music is really just kind of a reference to kind of keep us all on the same page. We're not going to have time for a rehearsal. But the music is such a sort of common part of the vernacular of the collective consciousness of you know, jazz musicians, and in particular these musicians, that, you know, it's going to work out well. But then the Saturday, the gig with the Gorilla Funk Mob, now that band, there's no sheet music, and it's all recordings. So, you know, I listen to the recordings, I listen to them over and over and make sure, but very similar to the process that you suggested, as far as like learning the music. Now, since I'm playing saxophone and flute on most stuff, on this, in that band, it's less sort of, I'm not playing a rhythm section instrument. Yeah. And I think that's like a different level of prep that I think is required. When I play at church, and this last season I was working at Vineyard Columbus, and this last season, probably the last year, maybe year and a half, I've been playing a lot of guitar in that capacity. Now we would get like music that had chord symbols on it in words, like the lyric sheets,
but no rhythms,
no
bars.
That's right. No form. You know, so that stuff wasn't really there, and so you listen to the recording for that, and it's almost just like a real reference. But I know that like my prep time, when I'm functioning in that capacity, is different. And part of it is because I'm newest to guitar, you know, and so I'm still kind of getting comfortable with my level of prep, you know, and I feel like I still want to like over prepare,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure everything goes well. And then also because it's a guitar driven church, the guitar parts have to be right. So you can't really like, not that the horn stuff, doesn't have to be right. I want that to be right too. But if the guitar stuff is not right, that's going to throw a bunch of folks off.
Right.
And a lot of folks are relying on musical cues, like the singers are leaning on musical cues.
Sure.
And a lot of the cues are guitar parts. So
Uh-huh.
when you play that guitar part, it's going to throw off the singer.
Yeah.
So there is that kind of thing. Yeah.
But I think even on what you're saying is based on a scenario situation. Like, based upon what I said would not apply for a big band gig. Because it's impossible.
Right.
It's impossible if you're playing, second tenor to remember a whole book. So,
yeah.
But I know in scenarios that I've been playing in probably in the last 5 years, it's more frowned upon to be looking at a chart just by the fact that it's more of a show and the visual presentation is important.
Right.
And if I'm the only one, which I have been at times, the only one looking at a chart, it's just not the best look. And so I actually became probably dependent on charts for a good 10 to 15 years. And then probably recently in the last 3 years, I've tried to wean myself and go back to how I originally started learning music, which is all orally. And so, and I just have noticed a difference in how comfortable I feel with the music.
Yeah.
It took me a minute to wean off of charts because there's like a dependency. It's more of a memory thing, I think. The bridge might not be difficult, but remembering that there is a bridge and then how that bridge goes is a thing. So that's where charts can help. Maybe looking down and get a glance. Oh, it goes there, and then you're back to, ear world. But as for me, as much as I can keep it ear. But like you said, everyone has a different method of learning, method of retention. So that's what it is.
Yeah. I think you have to do what works for you.
Yeah.
But I think the end goal really depends on the context.
Yeah.
So, if the context is nobody else is looking at sheet music, and that means that you're not looking at sheet music either. So you do whatever's necessary to get comfortable with that.
Yeah.
But if the context obviously is charts, the band leader sent you charts and they print those charts out and bring them to the gig, then that's what the context is. And even if it's just as a reference on that kind of gig, having the charts there is not a liability.
Right.
But
in our last video we talked about calling ahead to make sure, find out what the attire is and all that stuff. One thing, and I'm speaking out of a bitter place, but a pet peeve of mine is particularly in gospel music when there are a lot of hits, a lot of breaks, and you take the time personally to learn all the hits, all the licks, all the breaks, the form, and I mean, it's hip stuff, trust me. But everyone doesn't have that same understanding. Some of the band members say, well, I thought we were just sort of learning the general chords of the song, and I didn't really pick up that hit. And it's like, man, you stayed awake an extra hour to memorize a certain passage or something that everyone ends up not even doing. So one question I like to start asking in gospel scenarios is, are we learning this lick for lick? It's just a fair question. Are we learning this lick for lick, chord for chord, exactly like the record, or are we just getting a general understanding? And I'm fine with either, because I think even if it's a general understanding, sometimes that leaves a little more space for more of an improvisatory situation where you can actually put a little more of yourself in, as opposed to just being a robot playing a form or playing a arrangement. But if it is a case where we're doing lick for lick, you know, everybody in the band needs to know that. Otherwise, you end up bitter.
That's a great point. I've been on. I have several times been on the side of. I prepared at a level that nobody else did.
I've been on those gigs with you, and I laugh when I see your frustration. I remember you'd be like, at letter C, there's a 60th note figure here that starts on beat 3. Are we doing that? Are we doing that?
I remember the gig, and I'm not going to throw anybody.
I know. I already know.
Anybody under the bus.
Yep.
I know the gig you're talking about. Yeah, you know, it's that whole thing, you know, like when I say we're doing this recording exactly like, we're doing the song exactly like the recording.
Yeah.
I don't mean kind of like the recording.
Right.
I don't mean you listen to it twice and whatever you picked up in that two times through, that's what you play. Mm-hmm. No, I mean exactly like the recording.
Yeah.
Exactly. All the little nuances.
Yep.
You know, I'm married to a dancer who does a lot of choreography. And,
yeah.
And I've had several opportunities to provide music, live music, for something that she was submitted a recording, you know, months before we did, and then we're going to play that music live. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if the tempo is even a smidgen off, she notices. Mm-hmm. If every single, you know, little detail, you know, rhythmic content, obviously stuff like the form.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that makes a difference. But all the little nuances, the orchestration, you know, the voicing of the orchestra, all of these little things, if it's not exactly the same, it can really throw off the choreography.
Yep.
You know, and so in a lot of those situations where I've notated everything, Sathan, every single thing is accounted for. And, you know, and it's like, well, do we have to play this thing here? Oh, this is kind of tricky. Can we lay out on this? No, you can't lay out on that. No, because the dancers have been rehearsing to this for like 2 months.
Right.
And we can't give them less than what they've been rehearsing.
If that is a question, that's something you ask via email or text or call before the rehearsal or before the gig. You don't show up and say, oh, I didn't know if we were doing that. If you didn't know, it's fine not to know. If you don't know, ask the question, though, ahead of time.
Yeah. You know, and it might be a good indication if you got sheet music, you know, 2-3 weeks before. It's all in the sheet music.
Right.
That might be an indication that you need to know how to play that.
Oh, so we are doing that? Yeah.
Yeah. The hours of time that it's transcribed that perfectly.
Right.
Yeah, that's an indication that you want to. But yeah, no, you'd be surprised at how much, you know, those kinds of. It's just like, you know, and most of it is just lazy. You know, people just are trying to cut corners and trying to find ways to not have to spend that little extra time.
Yeah.
Even when guys they're on a gig that's more of a show.
Yeah.
And they didn't take that last amount of time.
Yep.
To really get the music memorized.
You
know, they didn't take that last amount of time.
Right.
It's just, you know, poor time management.
And it's lack of respect for the people that are working with you, because we all got drama. You know, even when it comes to coming on time, you know, people rushing. Oh, I'm sorry, I had something too, but I rushed. I made sure I got here, you know, 10 minutes early. So the same thing when it comes to cats. Well, you know, I didn't have time. I understand you got drama, but we all got some type of drama. Sometimes I might have more drama than you, but I stayed up to 3 a.m. to make sure I had my stuff together, and
That's
you
right.
just didn't. And
That's
so there's a lack of respect for the people that you're working for. It shows lack of respect when you're not as prepared.
Yeah, that's a good point, and yeah, that's a really good point. The whole respecting other people, respecting the music, respecting yourself.
Right.
Because
your reputation.
That's right. Because you won't come looking like a hot mess.
Yep.
That's disrespecting yourself. That's disrespecting all the time that you spent getting to the point where you could even get a call for that gig.
Yeah.
You disrespected all of that. And then you disrespected all of the people that facilitated your career.
Mm-hmm.
You disrespect everybody. Everybody's getting disrespected with that.
I'm going to tell you one thing that everybody respects is their own bank account. And when you stop getting calls because you start getting a reputation, then you start to reevaluate all the things that we're talking about, because you respect your bank account.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right on there. Okay, so as a band leader, how do you prep for a gig? Like, what's a process that you've used?
Well, as a band leader, that also means I'm accountable for the presentation, what happens on stage. We talked about on our last video being accountable for the look, as far as everybody coming on time, the aesthetics of it, but as far as the musical presentation, if I'm the band leader, I'm accountable. If we tank, it's the Hamilton Hardin group, they sounded awful. If we do great, it's, man, that Hamilton Hardin group, man, they sounded great.
Yeah.
So because of that, I want to make sure that I give the people that are playing the music with me let me put it this way. I want to eliminate any excuse not to have it right. So if I can give recordings, I'm going to give recordings. If I can create charts, I'm going to do both, charts and recordings. So if you're an auditory listener, you got it. If you're a visual listener, here you go. And then, even little follow-up email. I try not to micromanage too much because that can get annoying. But shooting out one email, hey, just want to make sure everybody got everything. Just eliminate, hey, I never got that email. That's happened way too many times. You know what? It's in my junk folder. Well, you know what? I'm going to send out a message just to reassure that it has been sent out, and check it, see if you got it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that bluntly, but the message is sort of hinting at that. Like, ask any questions you got. Otherwise, the expectation is that you're going to come to this rehearsal or to the gig prepared. Now, whether there's a rehearsal or not, I think for me depends on, one, the musicians that I have playing, and then two, what type of music that we're covering. Knowing that the results are a success, if it's any type of challenging thing that I think the personnel that I have is not going to be able to sight read, or not going to be able to just do on their own preparation without the whole group getting the vibe, then I'm going to rehearse. And I know sometimes money can be a part of that. If the gig only pays such amount, it may not justify a rehearsal, when, if you look at the hours spent versus the money made, isn't really quantifying correctly. If that's the case, I might not even accept the gig as a band director or band leader. So the price point that I ask for, and that I pay the people that I'm hiring, I want it to be commensurate and respectful of their abilities and all that stuff. to to do what it needs to do to make the success of the gig go well.
Right. That whole thing with double checking to make sure that people got the email.
Mm-hmm.
What I do with that is, so I'll put stuff in a Dropbox. I'll send the email to them.
Yeah.
The invitation via Dropbox. Then I'll send an email, and the email says you're going to be receiving, a Dropbox. Let me know if you have any issues.
Mm-hmm.
Then I also send a group text, and the group text says the same information.
Right.
Your email, you received this. Make sure that you let me know if you have an issue. And depending on who you're working with, folks have sort of different levels of technological savvy.
Yeah.
And I used to think, it's funny, I used to think that was more of a generational thing.
Mm-hmm.
And although I think in general that may be true,
yeah,
but I've had like students, and I have some current students that I have to constantly get on them. It's like, you're younger than me. You're a lot younger than me. You should know all this stuff.
Yeah.
I'm the one that's supposed to not know this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one that has an excuse, would have an excuse, but how come I know this stuff way better than you do?
Yeah.
Well, there's something wrong with that,
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having to deal with that. But so it doesn't seem to matter how old the musician is, it's just, there's just some folks that they're more technologically savvy and other folks that aren't.
Right.
And so you have to give people stuff in a way that they can receive it. As a band leader, you have to, as a leader,
mm-hmm.
you have to know that, and
Yeah.
you have to be willing to do what's necessary to communicate the information.
Mm-hmm.
It's just critical. You can't just do it one way and that it's not being received and then because you show up to the gig and it's going to be a hot mess.
Yeah.
Because they kind of consistently didn't get the information.
Yeah. But it's also your job as a musician to I think, like any job, whether you're a secretary, whether you are an accountant, technology changes, and to at least be able to be aware of what a majority of the people are using that work in your field. Pretty much when Dropbox came around, I don't know, 6 years ago, I don't know how many years ago, it was a brand new thing for me. The first person that sent me a Dropbox link, I was like, yeah, I don't do that. Just send me an email. But when I noticed that more and more people, and then a majority of the people that were sending me music were using this new thing called Dropbox, I'm like, okay, I need to evolve. And I need to acquire this new information. Now, I knew there's new sister companies and people are always inventing apps, and I'm not going to force myself to learn every new app that just because one guy uses. It's like, no, please set it this way. But if I'm starting to see that a majority of people and everybody's talking about using this sort of interface or this type of messaging system or whatever it is, you got to evolve and get hip to it. It's like a secretary who, I don't use Microsoft Word. You're a secretary, and pretty much every computer has some type of Word document program that you need to be hip on, Excel spreadsheet or whatever. So the same thing goes for musicians. It's not just, of course we all know, be proficient on your instrument, but as a working musician, you also have to be up on those technical pieces that allow you to be prepared for your gig.
Yeah, so I totally agree. And I think in general, what we're saying is if you're the side man on the gig, then you need to be ready to go no matter you know, how things are going to come at you. And then if you're the band leader on the gig, you need to understand that not every sideman is going to do everything that they're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
You try to, as much as possible, make things easy,
Right.
you know, and double check and all that kind of stuff. Because as you said before, you know, if a gig doesn't go right, then it looks bad on whoever the band leader is.
Right.
They're not as much concerned about who the sidemen were.
Mm-hmm.
If they just know that, well, they don't want to call that group again.
Yep.
Band leader, you know, he didn't do a good job. And it could be because one of the people in the band, and maybe that person needs to not get called anymore.
Right, right.
You know, that person in the band didn't get the information, you know, didn't know how to use Dropbox, you know, whatever it is. And but now you're on the gig and you're in front of people. So doesn't matter. That logistical stuff doesn't matter to the people listening.
Yep.
You know, they don't care about that stuff. So yeah, it's a kind of an interesting, you know, sort of issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me as a band leader, I mean, there's certain kinds of things I'm looking for, certain qualities in each of the band members. So obviously they need to be punctual, you know, they need to be well prepared.
Yeah.
But if I start continuing to get finer with that list, you know, technological savvy is pretty important.
Yeah.
That's a pretty important thing. And I mean, I can't be concerned about are these guys getting this stuff? And if you aren't getting this stuff, then why didn't you reach out to me and say, hey man, I still haven't gotten anything. It's you know, this is still not happening. You know, and I'm in the middle of you know, so I've been working at you know, Vineyard Columbus, big church in Ohio, in Columbus, Ohio. Working there for 5.5 years. And I just took a position as the minister of music at Second Baptist. Mm-hmm. So these churches are completely different. The model is completely and totally different. The currency, the technological currency is totally and completely different.
Right.
It's, the styles of music are totally and completely different. It's totally and completely different. Mm-hmm. You know, and I dig that. I dig that because I like doing different things, and I like being able to function in different circles.
Right.
You know, I don't want to have to just do the same thing all the time. I want to be able to, you know,
sure,
to do several different things. And you know, there a lot of information is being communicated in emails right now. Just as far as we're in transitional period. Mm-hmm. So if I'm not getting an email, or somebody else is not getting an email, or, you know, I'm kind of learning how to talk to whoever I need to talk to and to get the information that I need, and making sure that they're getting the information for me and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, and it's kind of front loaded. You have to make sure that, you know, everybody is getting what they need to get.
Right.
And then there's the whole, you know, how do you communicate to certain people? Because you're learning a different way of doing things, with different people that aren't totally sure about you. I mean, that, you know, you know, I went through the interview thing and all that, but, you know, you're kind of, you know, you have to be on top of stuff,
right? That
people don't start to think of you maybe in a way that you don't want. So you just have to be on top of stuff. And, you know, I find myself in band situations like that pretty regularly. I get a new call, you know, I never played with such and such.
Yeah. So
I can either, you know, really be prepared and do all the stuff that we're talking about, you know, have a way and a course of plan of action set up, you know, and show up and smash the stuff. I mean, hey, maybe I'm over prepared. Maybe I'm the only one that learned those licks, but hey, you know, they know that I'm serious.
Yeah.
So I can either do that, or You can show up and, you know, you don't have the right clothes on, you know, you didn't double check your email, and they actually sent a couple things maybe a week before the gig that they hadn't sent before. So then you're the only cat that doesn't know that.
Yeah.
You know? So then you can show up like that. And then you can be like, and then you tell them, oh man, you know, I didn't get the information. And, you know, and they can be polite with you and stuff. Oh no, that's okay, man. You know, I kind of sent that out last minute. Don't worry about it. You know, that's what they say.
Yeah.
But what they're thinking is, I don't know if I can call this cat back. You know?
Yeah. if you're a band leader, anyone, friendships aside, anyone who is a liability on timeliness, dress, preparedness, ruining the overall vibe of the gig, you as a band leader, you cross that person off.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, there's a lot of amazing, I'm talking about prodigy, virtuoso musicians that I just can't use because I know that I don't know what their attitude's going to be like, and it's going to throw a funk on everyone's vibe. I don't know if they're going to come on time. You know, there's even one musician I remember in Ohio that great musician came on time, but at the end of the gig, if the gig was 7 to 9, at 8:59, his whole vibe would get dark. And it's like, okay, you know, let's just finish it. We're gonna finish the song at 9:03. But it got just weird to the point where I couldn't hire him for that. Because if the gig, and I understand, you know, we got gigs that happen after gigs sometimes, you gotta get your next spot. But that's not even the case. Like some of these, the gig will end at like 11, where clearly there's no other gig that's happening after 11.
Yeah.
At least in Columbus, Ohio at the time. And so we all know it's late, but if the song runs to 11:05, just hold off for a second. Like, don't trip. But
I think
that person would trip, and I just couldn't call him anymore because it would make
I have an idea of who this musician is.
I know you do.
I'm not gonna say anything, but
but the vibe just gets dark, and then like everyone leaves the gig, and it's like, you know, you sort of do the polite thing, even if you're not in a good mood. Hey man, great gig. Hey, see you next time. This person would like turn red in the face, pack up the stuff, and like dip out the door. And it's like, dang. And so that throws a vibe to everyone. If this gig happens again, you know, you just can't use certain people for. But I went on a tangent, basically saying, as a band leader, anybody that's a liability, I'm not going to use you because you are putting at risk the futures of not only this gig for me, but the other bandmates that are working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. So, all right. I think if you keep talking, you're going to end up saying the cats.
I know. I'm going to stop.
a little bit more information.
Right.
No, but anyhow, yeah, we all know cats like that.
Yeah.
And we all know if we can use them or not, you know, with our setup and with the kind of general vibe that we're trying to create in the gig. And yeah, there's no reason to be like that.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be like that. I mean, and there are too many cats that they're not like that.
Right.
They just don't act like that. You know, so I mean, and they better than you too.
Yeah.
So these cats are better than you, plus they don't vibe.
Yeah.
You still think that you're supposed to keep getting calls? No.
Well, you know, one thing we didn't talk about much, maybe we should talk about in another segment, is just emotional maturity, because that's another aspect, especially when you start doing the tour thing, and you know, the lobby calls at 5 a.m., 4:30 a.m., and none of us feel like getting up. But it takes a certain emotional maturity to at least be somewhat pleasant, or if you can't be pleasant, know yourself well enough to just be quiet. Get on the tour bus or get on the airplane to the next city, and then once you perk up, then you can start talking again. But emotional maturity is a whole nother thing that is something I know that I look at for a tour, because if one cat gets super dark with the vibe, it has a potential to be like a disease that starts spreading. And you just can't afford to have all that dissension happening when you're about to get on stage and try to do something harmonious.
That's a very interesting topic. We definitely will double back and do some kind of a video, at least part of the video on this topic.
Yeah.
But I was watching a video by, an interview, Steve Vai.
Mm-hmm.
And Steve loves to tour.
Yeah.
He's touring all the time. And if you listen to any of his interviews, it's obvious how much he loves touring.
Yeah.
And he's in control of the whole thing. Like he's involved on the booking side of it. Obviously it's his band, so he's handpicking all the musicians. And I remember listening to one of his interviews where he was talking about how, the people that he picks, it's like who they are as people, their demeanor, can they handle being on a tour for a period of time?
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff becomes like critical, components. He said, he might have somebody that's a great musician, but just something gets a little strange about their vibe. And you might have somebody that's real killing, but it's just like, they're just so serious all the time.
Yeah.
And they can't cut loose and have a good time and laugh about stuff and,
right.
Like be together with the band and just hang loose and stuff. Their stuff has to be in a musical context, and
right.
He talks about how, that's a big component of how he selects the people that he goes on tour with.
Mm-hmm.
And he loves touring so much, and he's so passionate about it that it's like, he doesn't want somebody in the band to like steal his joy.
Yeah.
Because they're funky.
Mm-hmm.
So, and sometimes it takes a while to figure that out because some folks, they'll get progressively more funky the longer the tour is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like some cats, they can handle like a month-long tour. But once you get past a month or past months, then it starts getting funky.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. So that's this cat he's one of the heaviest touring musicians, like, period. Like, I don't know anybody that I think is touring more than he is. He's always playing.
Yeah.
Always touring, All right, man. Well, I think that that's good content. We'd like folks to share our videos, and if you dig it, then like our video. If you dig it, then tell other people about it. Maybe share our videos. We're just trying to share some information that we think will be helpful for musicians of all kinds, but of course, multi-instrumentalists to work in the industry. So that's it.
Yes, sir.
All right, man. You have a good one.
Yes, sir.